All right, exciting stuff, exciting stuff, exciting stuff.
Mhm.
We're going to take a look at the command line interface. You have the opportunity to do a little of that here in this class. And in 113, or the operating systems class, you get to do a lot more of it. This is the techie stuff, right? This is the stuff that they always, they always show in the movies. Right? There's always some text scrolling constantly past somebody just to show you that the computer's a character and doing something. Anyway, we're going to take a look at the most important parts of dealing with the command line. You'll get quite a bit of instruction from them. I'm going to emphasize the most important things that there are. When what we have here on the screen is an example of dealing with Windows, or some people would say DOS, or they're actually getting rid of the old standard command line and using PowerShell. So PowerShell, you do C:, this is our location. This is basically saying, hey, you're on C:. As a matter of fact, I need to put a little arrow in there so that we see that as a prompt. All right, so basically how any command is organized is you have the command itself. Now remember, we're in a text-based system. So if you double click Word, the icon, or you double click Chrome, it starts the program, right? Well, how would you do that at the command line? Well, you would go into the directory where that exists, and then you would just simply type the command that launches it. So for Word, it's called WinWord. And when you hit enter, it would launch Word. So everything's text-based. That first portion of what we're typing is the command we want to use. Then the next portion is going to be the string or the variables, as some people say. It's basically, I am going to tell you to switch directories, as you can see in the next line. So I have to tell you what directory I'm switching to. So the first portion is I am switching directories, which is dir. The second portion is where do I want to go to? That's the options or the strings. And then finally, you have the switches. In other words, I can change how the directory command works or is displayed using certain switches. Now on Windows, that is usually a / or a dash. So you really are dealing, when we say commands, you really are dealing with a small little program. And that little program in this example is dir. That little program then has a way to identify what you're asking it to do, and if you want to make a change to how that's displayed in this instance. And historically, / were used in DOS. So a lot of the networking stuff, like if I did an IP config, you could use a / all, or you could use a -all. And that's because on the Linux, Unix side of things, dashes are often used. And so when you're dealing with us people that are going to be doing this stuff on Linux and Unix and Windows or Mac OS, then they have started to make the new commands a lot more compatible, so you don't get frustrated and go, oh, dang it, that's a / instead of a dash. But this is the main thing you really need to understand. And the only real way to understand it is to issue commands and issue commands and issue commands, so you get used to understanding what you're doing. So issue a dir command. This is the string. This is the option. This is what I'm telling it to do. Give me a directory of this location. And then I want you to print that wide. In other words, don't give me a list downward to go across. Now, just to show you what a help looks like, this is the dir command here. And you'll notice it's got dir, and then it says, well, put the drive, then put the path, then put the file name, and then whatever else you might want to put. And then you put your switches. Then you can also do attributes. You can actually do a sort order for that. You can do it by time field, and these are the switches for that. Right, that's a lot of complication. That is a lot. But of course, if you wanted a lot of these attributes, you would type them out. And the help file is really just designed to give you a look at what you could do, not what you have to do. But I find that most students, right, if you pull this up, you're like, what is this telling me? Well, again, anytime you have brackets, it's saying you should put that in yourself. And I did. I put in here's C colon and here's the path. And I don't have a file name because I'm not looking for a specific file. And then I have a switch, and there's the W switch. I don't have to put in P, Q. I can put in whatever one switch I need, or maybe I don't even want to switch. I just wanted to list it normally. So you don't have to do these things. Right? So it's giving you this massive help file. Again, the most important thing to understand is command, then what am I asking it? What do I need from it? And then is there anything I need to modify, put my switches or modifiers on? So on Linux and Unix, you would use a /. That's what separates directories. The root directory is a /. And on Windows, you use a \. So that's two different ones, right? It's when you're using /, when you're using back. And as I mentioned before, that explains why the internet uses /, because Unix was what they were using for the internet. Here's the big thing. There are so many commands out there. I'm going to show you a list of commands. So many commands. It's a heck of a lot more important to know how to issue the command than it is to know what the command is. We have the internet now. We had books before. If you didn't know what the command is or didn't know what it was, then you look it up and you find the command and you issue the command. I tell people that all the time because there are differences in Linux variations. There's, of course, Windows is pretty much all the same, but you may not remember, well, I want to copy a bunch of stuff, a bunch of it. I mean, I want to copy it like I'm in Windows. Well, robocopy will do that for you. Xcopy will probably do that for you. Copy will be hard to use. Those are three different commands, and they have different switches to go with it. And so instead of actually memorizing that, you need to memorize, how do I issue robocopy? How do I issue copy? How do I issue Xcopy? Well, here's a secret. You issue them all the same way. All of them are issued the same way. You type it in, and then you have to type in the rest of it. Now, what is the rest of it? Well, that's where it gets complicated. And that's where it comes down to what's on the screen, whether or not it's an absolute reference or a relative reference. Usually they're a mix, and I've given you some examples. So an absolute reference tells the command line interface exactly where and what to do. I want you to get this from here and do that with it. That's what I want you to do. A relative reference allows the command line interface to assume based on where you are. I've got too many spaces in there. Oh, no, maybe not. So again, relative reference allows the CLI to assume based on where you are. This usually shortens the command that you have to type, and so it's used all the time. It's usually used in conjunction with an absolute. If I were writing a script file that had to do something all the time, the script file that has to know exactly where it is and exactly what it's doing. And so I would, in the script file, use an absolute reference. I want you to take this from here, and I want you to put it here, specifically telling it. Where I'd use a relative reference almost totally while I'm doing something at the command line, because I will probably go to where it is that I want to be, get what I want, and then send it to someplace else. Now, I know that all sounds really confusing to you. You really have to pretend like you're in this virtual world and you're standing in the directories. You're there. And if you do that, it'll help you out. For instance, in the real world, if you're in a room, a specific room, and now you have to tell somebody else what to do, and you can say, go to the kitchen and grab a sandwich. Right now, human totally understands, okay, I'll go find the kitchen and hopefully there'll be a sandwich there that I need to grab. They're assuming a bunch of stuff. Computers don't do that. So if you're talking to a computer, you would actually have to say, I want you to walk over here. I want you to exit the door. I want you to go down the hall. I want you to go into the kitchen. I want you to open the fridge, grab the sandwich that's on the third shelf, close the fridge, come back to me the same way you went, open the door, and give me the sandwich. And that's a whole lot different. That would be telling it absolutely this is what you have to do. Relatively, though, there are some assumptions the computer can make. If it knows that there's a directory called kitchen, right, and you're in the kitchen, then you can say grab the sandwich, and it will say, well, I'm in the kitchen, so I'll look for a sandwich. Oh, there's a sandwich. I grab the sandwich, right? But if you're in here and you say grab the sandwich from the kitchen, it's going to go, there's no kitchen in this room. So I can't grab a sandwich from a kitchen because there's no kitchen here. And yeah, that's kind of stupid, but that's the way the computer works. Sorry. So here's some examples. I'm telling it absolute. I'm sitting here so I type in, this is the prompt. So I'm sitting at this prompt. This is something that I did not type in. It's actually telling me something there. This is what I'm going to type in. I tell it, I want you to copy. And so if I reverse it the way we would say it in our language, I want you to copy my doc.txt that's located in the James directory on the C drive. That's not how it speaks. So I have to say, go to the C drive, locate the James directory. In the James directory, grab the mydoc.txt. Now for the second portion, go to the C drive, go to the James directory, go to the documents directory, and place the mydoc.txt in that directory. That's basically how it reads that command. Relative would be, well, you know what? I am sitting right here. This is where I am. As a matter of fact, I should put this down there. So I'm sitting right here. So go ahead and grab the mydoc.txt and then put it in the documents directory. What's happening at this point is the computer is going to say, okay, I just got the copy command and I didn't get any more direction other than go grab the mydoc.txt. Is there one here? Yes, there's one right here. All right, so that's what they meant. So I'm going to grab that. And then they said, put it into the documents directory. Okay, is there a documents directory inside the James directory? Yes. All right, so I'm going to put that, I'm going to copy the mydoc.txt into that directory. So if we change this prompt, and now we're at C:\\, this command doesn't work because there is no mydoc.txt in the root directory. And there is no documents directory right off of the root directory. Doesn't work at all. I'm telling you, that's the key to understanding it. And as you look at their demos, as you look at their explanations, as you type the stuff, I know it's a stretch for our brains these days to work with this kind of information, but watch what they're typing and try to interpret what it's going to do. What is this machine going to do? And it will help you to actually type that in. And when you get the error, go, why is this giving me an error? Now in 113, we go through this a ton. You'll get to do this in the Raspberry Pi project, and that's really, really helpful. And so you will learn a ton more about this, but I'm telling you, this really, really helps try to understand it here so that when you get into the OS class, whether it's a CIS or CMP, that you will get this down because it's vital to be able to do the ethical hacker class, to do the networking class, because if you're not familiar with how do I get around in this, and the fact that this is a command you're typing, and this is stuff you're telling it to do, and there's actually no switches on that. That's important to visualize and see, because you won't know when you're typing ipconfig or you're typing netstat or you're typing any of those commands that are very, very common that you use all the time. You'll be like, I don't know what this is doing. And when it lists something out, you'll be like, I don't know what it's telling me, because it's so much different than a graphical environment. So I've got some resources plugged in there so you can take a look at those. There's tons of videos on how to do this, and those are very helpful. And of course, test out is really, got it down to, hey, this is what you need to know for this particular course. So please pay attention on those.